I am so excited to be back to share some information with you, but I really am sorry I missed the Save a Rally last week. When I got here Monday morning, everyone in the office said, come and look, come and look. And they shared the posters and what everyone was doing and the kazoos and the marching and the vacuum cleaner and the signs, and it just sounded really, really wonderful. So I'm just really thrilled about that. Good things are happening. So it's wonderful to be back from Florida. We were there 2 weeks, and to come back and see all the blossoms on all the trees, it's like, this is just the beginning of March. This is pretty incredible. But it reminds me that life is a garden where the fruits of our beliefs take form. And in the Science of Mind, we ask everyone to tend their garden, to really tend their garden, because it is the creation of our mind, of our beliefs. And it's our intention and attention that is important as we tend our garden. Our intention and attention. It's a good thing every day to set your intention for the day. And then, of course, pay attention when you get off track or things are really working well, to really pay attention to how well your intention is creating your day. So the question is, are our thoughts on memories that are lovely or memories that aren't? Are our thoughts on beliefs that are wholesome or not so wholesome? Easy to get off track that way, isn't it? Are our thoughts in alignment with really what we want to have happen in our life? So this is the big garden of our life. And whether we're paying attention and setting our intention is very important. Because once we do set a very positive intention, we find more joy in life, we find more peace in life. And then we want to keep watering that garden with gratitude every day. It just makes every day start out beautifully. So to grow our garden, we need to let go of, or consider letting go of, any shame or guilt or hurt from the past. Because sometimes these past thoughts come creeping in like weeds. And we want to pull those weeds and replace them with something beautiful. And when we pull those weeds, we put them on the compost heap, because that's where they decay into something, again, beautiful. So it's beautiful thoughts today. So the question is, how are you tending your garden? How are you growing your garden? Are you pulling the weeds? Are you replanting those spaces with something beautiful? It's important to analyze that on an individual level, but it's also important to analyze that on a center level, a leadership level of the center. And it's also important for our parent organization called Centers for Spiritual Living in Golden, Colorado, for them to analyze their garden and see how it's going. Well, for that, I bring you good news today, a lot of good news. Because I spent a week at a conference in Orlando. We were staying at Disney World's Coronado Resort, had a week with ministers from all over the world, and got to learn more about what home office, as we call it, has been doing and preparing for the growth of our organization. And it was very powerful, very powerful. There were about 500 people there. Mostly ministers and practitioners, and that's one of the things they realized in their garden. It's like, well, where are the rest of the people that study Science of Mind? Where are we serving them? So it was really interesting. And there were three main areas that they talked about all week. One was upgrading the services to member centers, and that's going along beautifully. How to improve our operations, individual center operations, and how to help centers grow. And there were panels of ministers talking about that. That was pretty profound. And then, what progress have we made in reaching out to other religious traditions? That has been one of the core goals of our spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, and he got to talk about that. In the first area, home office has several special areas of focus, and the first one is education of youth, because when we looked around, they looked around even at the conference there, you could tell there weren't a lot of youth there. And that's something, if you're going to grow an organization and grow a philosophy, that the youth have to have their own educational programs, something that relates to them and their time and their understanding. And then improving technology and communications. We're on Facebook, we have web pages, but the world is moving so fast, and home offices realizing that we're a bit behind in that area, so there's a lot of effort there. And then diversity. You know, I was so proud of our organization at that conference, at the diversity of people that were there. You don't see it here in Reading because Reading isn't that diverse, but when I went to the conference, I was so glad to see so many people of other nationalities that were there. And it was really heart-inspiring. It was very uplifting to see that and to feel that and to talk about it. And then the other area is that they've made great progress in is in insurance. You know, every center needs to have insurance. Well, they've partnered with a company called Wave Financial Partners. It's a brokerage firm that has over 38 major insurance carriers, and they're offering various packages to centers. So we're going to be checking into that to see if we can get a better package than what we have now. And then the other area is global services. There are centers in many countries, but there needs to be curriculum that's for those people in those countries in languages that they can understand. So there's a great opportunity there for global services. And our Reverend Barbara Leger was given a special award and special thanks for her work in the Ukraine. And if you've been following the Ukraine as closely as I have, you know that our prayers can be powerful instruments for the continued freedom they desire there. So this morning I wanted to focus on 3 areas that were more important to me, because some of that may not be important to you, and I hope these are. You know, when the 2 organizations, United Church of Religious Science, or Centers for Spiritual, and International Centers for Spiritual Living, merged a couple years ago. They were both teaching the same thing, using the same text, and so they merged into one organization now called Centers for Spiritual Living, period. When they merged, they both had a tremendous amount of curriculum, and this is a quote: "They mushed it together." And as teachers here at the church, we could feel that, couldn't we? It's like, what are they doing here? Why this, why that? Why all these new classes, but there's not enough background? So we have to continue to develop our own ways of teaching this curriculum to anyone who takes classes here. So I was glad to hear them, just finally say, yeah, we mushed it. And it didn't work very well, did it? Well, that was one area that's been important to me. About a year ago, I was so frustrated. And I'm a spreadsheet person. I love Excel. If you have a few numbers, I want to put them in a spreadsheet. So I took all the classes from both organizations, put them on this huge spreadsheet, and I showed them. I sent it to home office and to the leadership there, and I showed them where the vacuum was. Look at here. You could go clear into practitioner training without having read the whole Science of Mind text. I mean, would a Christian teaching let you do that? Would they? I mean, I was just floored. So I had all these examples, and I sent it in. Now, little did I know there was a whole synergy around this going on all around the country, and they got a lot of flack. And so they decided that it was time to really relook at this whole curriculum thing. And so several months ago, they had what's called an education forum, a summit, education summit, and they invited certain leadership people to come to Colorado and spend a week talking about this. So they came up with what they call a set of ideas, and they made us repeat 10 times, this is not a plan. This is not a plan. It's a set of ideas of what we could do with curriculum. And so this set of ideas is 24 pages long in 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year increments of change. And so many of the ministers since that summit have been invited to participate in turning this set of ideas into an implementation plan. And I'm happy to say I was one of those asked to be on that team. Maybe because of my spreadsheet excellence, I don't know. We'll find out, that's for sure. But here are some of the ideas behind this summit. And, You probably recognize that the curriculum, where we talk about certificated classes, non-certificated classes, it's all based on classwork that helps one get to a point where they can take practitioner training, maybe followed by ministerial training. They want to reorder that from a focus on practitioner training to a focus for you. Personal empowerment, self-actualization, personal transformation, followed by practitioner training. And that's major. That's a real major leap. They want to expand the number of classes that are only 4 to 6 weeks long instead of 8 to 10. That's good. They want to focus on laity, that's you, leadership training, followed by practitioner training. And they want to develop a lifelong learning program. Now, this would mean classes that you could take probably for the next 20 years and not repeat any. A lifelong learning, there would be classes on relationships, business, conflict resolution, parenting, all kinds of things, aging, lifelong learning, because this teaching applies to every area of our life, but you just don't read the text once and get all that. So there's great opportunities there. And then they want to bring in the complementary theories like Ken Wilber's integral theory, quantum physics, and spiral dynamics. Those are other theories that blend very well with science of mind. Then they want to expand online classes because those have been very popular. But again, if you're going to be global, you have to have them in different languages and in different words that speak to the people of those countries. It's like Reverend Barber says, you write a book for the Ukraine and you mention God, it's not going to go anywhere. You mention church, forget about it. So you have to talk to them in what's right for their culture. Then they want to split the practitioner curriculum because it's long and it's arduous and you're not allowed to take more than one class at a time. And they're saying, there are some people that have been in this teaching a long time and you're asking them to go really slow when they personally can go much faster. So there's going to be a fast track, which is very exciting. And then there's going to be, the Holmes Institute, Masters of Consciousness. That is where we do our ministerial training. Diane is real excited. Where they do ministerial training right now. And Tara Steele left here to go full time there, and it's taking her 3 years to do her ministerial training there. Well, that's arduous when people who have been in this teaching a long time have the gift and they want to make it happen. So they're going to keep that master's program for anybody that wants a real master's degree, but they're going to make it easier and have more local ministerial training. Hallelujah. It's great. So another area that's of interest to me is publications. We have 2 magazines. One is Science of Mind magazine that's been around for over 60 or 70 years, and Science Creative Thought magazine, which is celebrating 60 years. United used to write this. International wrote this. We were part of the international group. Now, in Science of Mind, it's widely read because it's written for the public. You don't see a spiritual mind treatment in here. You see daily articles, you see lots of quotes, you see interviews with famous people like Maya Angelou, different people, and it's really meant for the public and for those who may not know of the Science of Mind text, but it's very positive and uplifting. Well, it has about 80,000 readers. And what they found when they took a look at this is a lot of the readership lives in areas where there's no center. There are a lot of communities in this country that don't have a center. And so over the last year, they marketed this test program, and I'm just so excited about it. It's called Spiritual Circles. They contacted subscribers in different areas. And they said, if we give you the mailing addresses, the contact information for other people in your community and area that are subscribers to this magazine, would you be interested in inviting them to your home to talk about the magazine every week, and we will provide you with discussion questions? This has been going on for months, and I'm happy to say over 70 groups are meeting in areas that don't have a center. Isn't that great? And so I'm thinking Alturas, Weaverville, all kinds of places we could do that. We could even do it here. they gave us some of the questions that they had put together, and they were wonderful, and we all just got so excited about it. So when they finally launch this for everyone, I'll let you know, but that's really an exciting thing. So, Creative Thought Magazine, it is not marketed to the public because it's full of spiritual mind treatments that are written in a 5-step process that when you're new, you open this magazine and you say, what are they talking about? What kind of a prayer is that? Until you learn how Ernest Holmes found this to be the most effective way to do prayer and get results. It has articles in it by ministers and practitioners. And for over 6 years now, I've been writing the question and answer column in it. I looked at that a couple weeks ago. I thought, 6 years, isn't that amazing to write a monthly column in this magazine? And I said to them, do you still want me to do this? And they said, well, I guess we could ask somebody else. And 10 minutes later, I had sent them 8 more question and answer columns. And so I really like doing it. But the great thing right now is it's now on very, very beautiful paper, and it's all in color. This is great, at no extra cost, because the cost of printing and the printing processes have moved so far forward, they could do this at no extra cost. So I'm very excited, and just for practicality, instead of having to rip off the last page of the magazine to subscribe, they now have an attachment that you can rip off and send in to subscribe. Both of these magazines, I encourage you to use them as part of your daily spiritual practice. I do, and I just dearly love them, especially Creative Thought, because when I need something to uplift me, I believe in me. I am living proof of divine causation. I listen, therefore I see. Infinite good waits for me. I am love in action. These are great treatments, great prayers to start your day. Well, enough promotion about that. That was great. One evening at the conference, they had a gathering of all the people who wrote for both magazines, and it was really fun to see these people who I've been reading, month in and month out, and who do the treatments. And so it was really nice to have that happen. Another thing they've done is they've partnered with a company called Park Point Press. It's a book publishing company. And this past year, they tested the market out, and 3 of the leaders in home office wrote books, and they were published. And they do a first run of 500, and then see if there's room to do another run of 500. And I talked to them about my book that I've done for years, the Practitioner Handbook, and I've created a 3rd edition. So I sent it to them, and they want to publish it. So I know, isn't that great? It is. And the nice thing that they're doing is they're putting full color page ads about the books in Science of Mind magazine that you don't have to pay for. So anyway, I'm very excited about that. They also want to do more live streaming. They live streamed the conference, but they want to live stream regional meetings, weekly meetings, anything that we can live stream to bring more people into the fold and understanding how the whole organization is moving forward. And the Facebook pages that they have for Creative Thought Magazine and Science of Mind are getting lots and lots of likes, like over 100,000 just in the past few months. If you don't know what like is, ask somebody who knows. I still don't totally understand it, but Kim raises her hand. When you like something, it goes far and wide. Anyway, the third area that I found fascinating and very important is building alliances. In your program is a little, here it is. Mine is still folded. It's called Strategic Alliance Partnership. Please take this with you. When they merged both organizations and made a spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, who came here this past year, Dr. Ken, when he came, he said, it's time for us to keep thinking we know it all and to reach out to other spiritual organizations, religious groups, other faiths, and find out what we have in common. Forget about our differences. Forget about our differences. And so they worked really hard to create this covenant. And there's the background, and here's the relationship, all the whereases. Well, Dr. Ken has been working very hard with several organizations, and this past year, We signed this kind of covenant document with the Convocation of Catholic Apostolic Churches of Antioch, with Rabbi Susan Tolve of Central Reformed Congregation in St. Louis. And at this convention, we signed this covenant with Bishop Yvette Flunder, keep mispronouncing that, Yvette Flunder. And she's with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, which is a Methodist Baptist Pentecostal blend. I mean, that sounds really cool. And they're in the Bay Area, but they have hundreds of churches, and she is amazing. She talked there at the conference before they signed this covenant, and I was totally impressed. And so what I did is put on the back of this information about her in the Bay Area, and I really want to go to one of their services because she's an amazing person, just amazing. You Google her and all kinds of things come up.
What's her name?
Yvette Flunder, and it's on here. She shared her vision of why she wanted to sign this covenant with us. She said, "We are all one, and we're held together by the grace of God. Peaceful people are too quiet." She's an activist, you can tell. "And we need to speak the truth to power both our joys and our sadness." She believes peace in the world is possible, and she called that day of signing this covenant a wedding day between our two organizations. And she invited everyone to share the good news. She said the gospel is intended to be open to all. So the covenant was signed to great applause, as you can imagine. She's just a dynamic person. Well, during our second week in Florida, Paul and I drove around the panhandle of Florida. We had never been up there, and it's really true. It's a big swamp. We saw more crocodiles and alligators than I ever thought I'd ever see. They're just everywhere, water everywhere. It's beautiful, and the beaches are world-class, sugar white beaches in the panhandle. But while we were doing that, the weather was not always cooperative. And so I had a book along with me by Emma Curtis Hopkins called Scientific Christian Mental Practice. And I got hooked on that book. I could not put it down. So when Paul dropped his mini iPad off the third floor balcony of our room, to great applause and smashing, and he used my Kindle. And so I had to stick with this book, and it's just so profound. I've started it over as of yesterday. Here's what Emma says. "Remember, Jesus said, 'According to thy faith be it done unto thee. Thy faith has made thee whole.' This is planting the garden. This is tending the garden of our mind." But she wrote, "We will certainly demonstrate as much greatness as we have the courage to stand by our intention." And Dr. Ken's intention is to find the qualities that are the same between us as people, as spiritual people. She says, we uplift our life by uplifting our thoughts, which ushers us into a new region, a new realm. So that goes with the questions I asked this morning. How are you tending your garden? Are you weeding it out properly every day? Are you filling it in with beauty, with plants and thoughts of beauty? Here's Emma's affirmation. "I plant the garden of my life," please repeat after me, "I plant the garden of my life with the seeds of joy, plenty, and love. My life is a bountiful harvest of peace, fulfillment, and connection." Peace, fulfillment, and connection, and so it is. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Good morning. It's so good to see all of you out there, and I want to say a special welcome to Luana Eskew. She was one of our ministers here that moved to Hawaii. Welcome back, Luana. Just a real thrill to see you. there's this lineage thing of those of us that studied with Dr. James and Dr. Andrea, and she's one of those. And there's a bond there that never goes away, you know what I mean? Phoebe, fabulous, fabulous. Does she, a voice of an angel, voice of an angel. And I'm really sorry I missed the Seva rally last week. For those of you that are new, Seva is a Sanskrit word, and it's about selfless service to God. So everything that we do here at the center, we're in service to God, whether it's cleaning or washing windows or landscaping or ushering or greeting. We're doing it with that sense, inner sense. This is service to God. So that's what all the posters are around here, the different Seva teams. And I said, well, heck, I'll give a prize to whoever gets the most sign-ups. And so I have a necklace that I made with $20 bills. And it's for the team that gets the most sign-ups to have a pizza party. So now you know, if you haven't signed up yet, be sure you do so afterwards, because we want to be sure everybody gets to go have a lot of fun with a pizza party. Oh, well, Paul and I went to Florida for 2 weeks. The reason being our parent organization called Centers for Spiritual Living out of Golden, Colorado, had a conference. And it was mainly for ministers and practitioners. It was a whole week long at the Coronado Resort in Disneyland, which was really great. And I only had one day off, so Paul got to tool around and see everything. But then the second week, we tooled around the rest of the panhandle of Florida. So it was really great, and I really was thinking about this topic, the garden of our thought, because, you know, in Florida, everything is very rich and lush and swampy. And you know, February is the perfect time to go there because there's no bugs, not even one bug on the windshield in 2 weeks. So it's a perfect time to go there, but because most of the trees didn't have leaves, all the moss was hanging, and it was very weird to see that much moss. And then I thought they were crocodiles. Paul said there are no crocodiles. In Florida, they're all alligators. And we saw them 8, 10 feet long. And even in Disneyland, a little pond, there's a gator. So it was very interesting. So the garden of our thought, it's wonderful to think about how we garden our lives. The flowers here this morning remind me of that. And all the flowers in bloom that I think are blooming a little early this year. You know, I just hope we don't get a frost, but it's fun to see that, because as we garden and prepare the soil of our life, it's the way we garden and prepare our vegetable garden also. We don't want too many weeds in there. We don't want weeds to take over. So when we're doing our garden of life, there's a couple things that I invite you to think about. It's your intention, I-N-tention, your intention for your garden of life. What do you want to plant? Joy, happiness, peace, love. And then your attention. Are you paying attention to what's really growing there? And in the first service at the little guided meditation, I invited everyone to think about the thoughts they already had just today, which are probably a couple hundred, and how many of those were weeds versus flowers. And are you going to pull out those weeds? What are you going to do? Are you just going to let them grow? No, you want to pull them out and put them on the compost pile that will make something good out of it eventually. So we want to always think about what our intention is, our intention. Do we have ideas that are powerful? Do we have memories that are lovely instead of anxiety-ridden? Do we have beliefs that are wholesome, and are our thoughts in alignment with what we want our life to be? So it's important to be the guardian of your mind, but it's very nice to think about it as the garden of your life. What are you growing in your garden? Some of the weeds that we let gather sometimes are blame, judgment, anybody? Shame. It's time to jerk those weeds out of there and replace them with love, and we know that. So it's being the guardian of our mind. Every day it's time to root out those weeds and get rid of them. So what weeds are you growing in your life? And what weeds need to be pulled that have just grown a little too tall in your life? Well, this requires analysis, doesn't it? Analysis of our own thinking, our own patterns. And when you go on a vacation with your spouse for 2 weeks, you find some patterns that, you haven't been together 24/7 for a long time, and now you're there for 2 weeks, and these little weeds just crop up, and he was happy to point those out. He's really sweet, though. My husband is really sweet. But he's getting older, and he's getting a little forgetful, and so I don't know if I'm off my topic already. All right. They give you, when you go to Disney, they give you a little watch. It's like a watch that has Mickey Mouse ears on it. This watch opens your room. When you swipe your room door, it opens your room. When you go to a restaurant, you swipe it on the Mickey Mouse ears at the cashier, and it pays for everything, and you forget how much you're spending. And then they call you and they say, you've reached your limit. You need to up your credit card because you're swiping all these places. It's really fun because they can follow you wherever you go. They know where you are. And it's good for kids because kids just swipe and then you can find it. But it's really a wonderful thing. But you know that they're watching. When you went on this ride, then you went over here. How many people do that? Anyway, it was just great fun. So the best thing about the convention was, though, it was time for Centers for Spiritual Living as an organization to look at their garden and what they were growing and what weeds needed to be pulled. Because a couple years ago, the two big organizations, International Centers for Spiritual Living, United Centers for Spiritual Living, merged because they were doing the same thing, teaching the same thing, using the same books for many years. They merged. And when they merged, it was very hard because they operated very differently. And so they've been analyzing this and really doing a lot of good soul searching. And what I bring you today is really good news. I'm really excited about this organization. About 500 people attended the conference, and like I said, mostly ministers and practitioners. And that's one of the things that they realized, well, what about all the other thousands of people that are studying this philosophy? When are we going to have conferences that address their issues, their ideas, their lives? And that's one of the big things that they'll be focusing on. They also are focusing on upgrading their services to all the centers because there's over 450 in the world that are aligned with this teaching under this parent umbrella. And then how they can help us grow and how they can help us streamline our operations. And that's really exciting. And then the third thing is outreach to other religious denominations, because we get really good at talking to ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, what a good thing we teach, and not looking at the rest of the world. And yet the rest of the world is also doing the same thing to some degree, but somewhere there's some commonality. And when in the merge, we elected Dr. Ken Gordon, who came here last year. You probably remember that, dynamic guy. He said, I'm tired of looking inner. I want to look out into the world and see what commonalities we have with other religions and talk to them about that. Because if we want a world that works for everyone, that's what we're going to have to do. Quit looking at what we don't agree on and look at what we do. So in addition to that, they're working on education programs for youth, which is very important because if you looked at the conference people, there were a lot of elders there. Just as we sometimes look around here and say, where's all the youth? They'll be improving technology and communications because, that world is moving so fast, they know they're not keeping up, and so that's got to be addressed. They've put together an insurance program with a company called Wave Financial Partners that is a brokerage organization of 38 major insurance companies so that we can now get quotes from them to see if we can get a better deal on our liability insurance and director's insurance than we have. And they're also extending the work in global services. There are centers all around the world in a lot of different countries, but we don't have curriculum for those countries. We don't have it in their language. We don't have it in their culture. And so there's a big effort to that. And Reverend Barbara Leger, who's on our practitioner staff here, received a very special award at the convention for her work in the Ukraine, which you know is having challenges at the moment. And I talked with Reverend Barbara the other day, and she said, don't worry about them. They are powered up. She has 26 practitioners in the Ukraine. They are powered up, and they're confident everything's going to work out. So why would I want to doubt that? Don't even put one weed there. They've got it handled. So this morning I wanted to share 3 areas that are special to me that came out of the conference. The curriculum. You know, anybody that teaches our curriculum knows that since we merged, it's been challenging. Well, I heard the truth at the conference. They said, you know, United had all these classes and International had all these classes, and this is a quote, we mushed them together. Thank God they were honest, because we knew that's what happened. We're trying to teach these classes. We're going to have to upgrade these things so we can make it valuable to the students that come, because we've been very frustrated. About a year ago, Sue always laughs, but I love doing spreadsheets. So I did this big spreadsheet of all the classes and every book that students were asked to read, and the science of mind, and when you had to read science of mind, and all this. And I sent this spreadsheets with a long letter to headquarters and any leadership minister that would, I think, listen. I said, do you know that if you started here, you could get a practitioner license and not read the whole Science of Mind textbook? Now, what kind of Christian organization will let a student become a practitioner without reading the Bible? There were a lot of vacuums like that. And I thought, well, maybe somebody will listen somewhere, but little did I know that all around the world, there was this synergy going on, you know, one mind, and they were getting a lot of feedback. So the first thing they said is, all this has to be redone, looked at. So they had an education summit several months ago in Golden, Colorado, and invited a lot of leaders, not a lot, but selected leaders to it. And they met for a whole week. And they came up with a 27-page document of ideas. Now, they made us say this over and over and over again in Orlando. This is not a plan. This is not a plan. This is not, it's a set of ideas. And it was so exciting. They had workshops and breakout groups and sticky notes all over the walls, and it was really fun. And they've decided that they will have an education organization, department, whatever, to take this document and make an implementation plan. And they invited me to be on that team. So I'm really excited about that. I really am, because I love curriculum, and I'll make them the best spreadsheets they would ever need to make sure all the holes are filled, all the gaps are filled. So here are some of the things that they do want to change. If you've noticed over the years, the curriculum is leaning towards, will you be a practitioner? Take this in order to be a practitioner. Take this in order to take practitioner training and then ministerial training. And they're forgetting about most of you. And they want to reorder the whole thing and stop focusing immediately on practitioner training and focus on life skills. Focus on business, focus on relationships, empowerment, personal empowerment, self-actualization. I was so excited. I was so excited wanting to tell you about that. They want to do more courses that are 4 to 6 weeks instead of 8 to 10. We say yay to that too. They want to focus on leadership training for you, leadership training. And that then practitioner training, but leadership, because every organization depends heavily on its leadership. We have had quarterly leadership meetings and people say, who is a leader? I said, anybody that wants to call themselves one, come and participate. So they're going to be focusing on that. In fact, there's going to be a school of spiritual leadership that will be formed. That's big. That's really big. Then there will be a lifelong learning program, something for businesses, relationships, parenting, conflict resolution. And then they want to add some complementary programs like Ken Wilber's integral theory, spiral dynamics, quantum physics, expand the online classes. Kim's excited about that. Expand classes that are culturally relevant to other countries. You know, in the Ukraine, you can't say God. You can't say minister. You can't say church. And, you know, our curriculum's loaded with that. So it needs to be culturally relevant. That's a big one. And then splitting the practitioner curriculum into two. There'll be a fast track for people that have been in this teaching a long time and just don't need to take Science of Mind Chapter 1 again. And then there will be another track. And so that is going to be exciting. And then the Holmes Institute, which currently is where our ministers train, is going to continue as a master's program, but they're going to bring back ministerial training to more of a local level, which is how we all were trained. And I'm so excited about that because it's a real rich program. So that's what they're doing in education. And they have 2-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, and 20-year goals, but it's not a plan. It's an idea until we make it a plan. The other thing that I'm excited about is our magazines. You know, Science of Mind magazine has been in operation for probably 80 years, and it was the United side of the family magazine. It's a wonderful magazine because it has just readings, daily readings. It doesn't have spiritual mind treatment, which is our form of prayer in here, but it has quotes. It has a lot of interviews like this one with Maya Angelou. They really go out to the public. They are focused on the public. Positive, life-affirming articles for the public. Right now it has about 80,000 readers. And because one of the things they've been investigating is most of the people who subscribe to this magazine live in areas where there's no center, where they can't get together with like-minded people. So what they decided to do is a test market, and they found people in a lot of different areas where there's no center who get the magazine, and they said, would you be willing to have weekly meetings of other subscribers in your area and talk about the articles, and we'll give you discussion questions for that meeting. So they found a lot of people. They gave them the mailing list, the subscribers' mailing list and contact information, and they contacted them. And now we have over 70 groups meeting every week to discuss the articles in this magazine. Isn't that clever? I mean, it's so clever. I would love to do that in Alturas and in Weaverville, you know, Cottonwood, I mean, anywhere. So as this becomes a full-fledged program, I will let you know. Very excited about that. Then the other thing is Creative Thought Magazine. Now, this is a magazine only for people in the Science of Mind teaching, because there are daily spiritual mind treatments, our form of affirmative prayer, in here. And if you're new and you read this, you go, what are they saying? What does this mean? Because it's done in a 5-step process. So you have a prayer every day. For example, this one is, I am love in action. Infinite good waits for me. I listen, therefore I see. I believe in me. I am living proof of divine causation. These are really, really great prayers for you. And it's not marketed outside because of that. There are ministers' articles and practitioners' articles, and for over 6 years I've been writing the monthly question and answer page in here. And I didn't realize it was that long until they said, do you still want to do this? And I said, yeah, if nobody else wants to and nobody else wanted to, so I'll continue to do that. But the nice thing about Creative Thought is the world of printing and paper has evolved so much. It's now in full color on very slick paper. I used to work in the pulp and paper industry, so I just felt this paper and I went, oh, this is good stuff. But it's all in color. And then instead of having to rip your magazine apart to send it a subscription, they added another fold out so you can subscribe there. Anyway, I'm excited about these two. I got to meet a lot of the writers there at the conference, and I encourage you to use these in your daily spiritual practices. They're very valuable. We'll be ordering more every month because we seem to be selling out, and that is really good. Okay. Publications, that's that. And one of the things Home Office has done is they've partnered with a publishing company to print books. And so this past year, 3 books were written and printed by our leadership, and they print an initial 500 and then print another in increments of 500 as they sell. And so this year they want to do a lot more. So I said to them and sent them my 3rd edition of the Practitioner's Handbook, and they want to publish it. So I'm very excited because they're doing full-page advertisements in Science of Mind on the books they publish. So that's really nice, really nice. I'm excited about that. They want to do a lot of live streaming of regional meetings, national meetings. They want to have a large event every year for laity, which is you, all of you, and better use of social media, a lot better use of that. The last thing I wanted to share is something that's in your program. It's that folded over page. It's called Building Alliances. It's Strategic Alliance Partnership in your program. This is just brilliant. When Dr. Ken was here, our spiritual leader, his theme is, I want to live and help create a world that works for everyone. It doesn't have to be a certain way. It just has to work for everyone. And that's a huge goal. It's just huge. So what he's doing is reaching out to other faith traditions to find out what we have in common, not what our differences are, what we have in common. And can we celebrate our commonality? Well, he's been doing this for a year, and he has signed this covenant that you have in your program with the Convocation of Catholic Apostolic Churches of Antioch, with Rabbi Susan Tovel of Central Reformed Congregation in St. Louis, and at the Florida Convention, he signed this covenant with Bishop Yvette Flunder of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, which is a Methodist Baptist Pentecostal blend of churches in the Bay Area. I wanted to give you that because I'm not going to read it, but you'll see what is being agreed to, how we are supporting each other. And then Bishop Flunder got to talk, and I tell you, I Googled this lady. She is dynamite. She is amazing. And so on the back of that covenant is just information about her. What an incredible person. And here's what she said. She said, we're sharing the realization that we're all one, and that we are all held together by the grace of God. And she said, peaceful people are too quiet. We need to speak to the truth and to the power of peace in life. She believes peace in the world is possible, and she felt that day when they signed this covenant that it was a wedding day, a wedding between our 2 organizations, and she invited everyone to share the good news. She said, the gospel is intended for all. The covenant was signed to great applause, as you can imagine. So I was very touched by that. And I get in the office this morning, and on my desk is an envelope. And it's from the new church in town called The Stirring on Churn Creek. Have you seen that? Here it is. They are inviting us, pastors, to come March 20th at 11 a.m. to their church to celebrate what unites us. I mean, it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. Celebrate, it brings tears to my eyes. Celebrate what unites us. The Stirring is attracting a lot of young adults, and we've lost many young adults who go there because it's upbeat. They got a rock and roll band. They do bike trips, and they're really, really out there. So I'm just so touched about that. So during our trip to Florida, I had downloaded all these books like The Course in Miracles on my Kindle, but we're in this third floor building at the ocean, and Paul's taking pictures with his iMac and turned it, and it fell 3 floors and smashed. Total panic. He was locking the door, and it was just total panic. So I had to let him use my Kindle all week, and so I pulled out my book that I took that I just could not put down, and you're going to think this is funny, but it was Dear Emma Curtis Hopkins, and Scientific Christian Mental Practice. Fabulous book. I'm starting rereading it again. I'm just enthralled with this book, and never thought I could read Emma straight through. but I did. And she reminded me that it is according to our faith that it is done unto us. But she had a great quote: "We will demonstrate as much greatness as we have the courage to stand by our intention. We uplift our life by uplifting our thoughts, which usher us into a new realm." Isn't that beautiful? Brilliant woman. Ernest Holmes studied with her before she died. So in that, I ask you again, what seeds are you planting in your life? And what weeds have taken over a little more space than you like? And can you pull them out this week? Even the ones that were growing or showing up this morning, between the time you woke up and the time you came here. And I invite you to say with me, I plant the garden of my life with the seeds of plenty, joy, and love. Joy and love. My life is a bountiful harvest of peace, fulfillment, and connection. And so it is.